Welcome back to Men in the City. In today's video, we're going to talk about how modern men fight. Whatever age men have lived in, whether it was the age of chivalry, or it was ancient Greece or ancient Rome, or it was the Middle Ages, or it was the feudal era, or it was the age of industry, or it was the Napoleonic period, whatever period of life that we as men live in, we must fight. But fighting does not necessarily mean what most people think it means, violence or a physical confrontation. Fighting is a far more intellectual and cerebral process. One of the things that I do in my fitness is I box. And I box at least once a week, if not more. And boxing on the surface is a very rudimentary, robotic kind of exercise. At the end of the day, you have two fists that are up and you're fighting. You're either jabbing or you're uppercutting or you're sideswiping. Whatever your stance may be, at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. But boxing is a very technical sport, as is most martial arts or fighting in general. It is a science, and it's a science that you have to learn. And it's not just about your body or your physique or the opponent. It's about how you maneuver. It's about what your opponent is thinking. Is he afraid? Is he aggressive? What does his stance tell you? What are his strengths and his weaknesses? What are your strengths and weaknesses? So as you can see, just thinking through that process tells you a lot about life, about yourself, about your place in a social hierarchy or a power structure. All of these things are core competencies that men have had to learn throughout history. Well, today we're going to talk about how modern men fight. How can we orient ourselves in the world such that we can compete and win? And remember that no matter how plastic or secure, no matter how much safe of a safety harness society has, or how Teflon the world around you seems, the world is a dangerous place. At any given time, something can change. You could find yourself in a very violent situation very quickly, or you could be fighting through a very difficult period of depression or unemployment, whatever. So hopefully the tools that we discuss today will help you fight your way through that process. And I use that word fight in a positive sense. You know, we have reframed a lot of core masculine ideas in a negative way in the modern age because of political correctness, because of wokeism or feminism, or any number of these very harmful ideas that have emasculated men. But all men must learn how to fight. And fighting begins here. It does not begin here. So let's talk about certain steps that you can take right now to help you as a modern man fight and win. The first, and perhaps the most important, is to know your pedigree. What does that mean precisely? Well, it means to know who you are, to know where you come from, to know who your father was and what he believed in, or what disciplines he espoused, or what his career was all about. Why did he do the things that he did? Even for absentee fathers, or even for father figures that have not been particularly fatherly, there's a lot to be learned from your pedigree. And everybody, all of us, all men, must take pride in our past, whether that means overcoming a troubled past or taking pride in the past actions of men, specifically your father or your grandfather or your grandfathers who came before you, to take pride in what they did. You know, I come from a long line of Americans. My family goes all the way back to the beginning of the Republic in the United States, to 1620. And so over 100 years before there was this thing called the Constitution. And that is an inheritance. That is a pedigree that I think about every day. before 1620, my family came from Scotland. They were Highlanders, and that is something that I think about every day. It's something that informs who I am and helps me sort through a very complicated and dynamic world in which things are constantly changing. That is a part of who I am. That is a fixed, immovable part of my psyche. So the first is know your pedigree, know your history, who your father was, who he wasn't, and ostensibly decide for yourself what your pedigree will be going forward. Second, ignore social proof. This is a very difficult principle, very difficult skill to learn, because we live in a world in which legitimacy is conferred upon people based on how many followers they have on YouTube or on Instagram, or how famous they may be, or their academic accolades. But that is an illusion. Those things come and go. How popular or unpopular you are will change like the wind. Ignore social proof. Instead, pay keen attention to the actions of other men, to the logic or soundness of their arguments. Set aside what other people say, whether it's insulting or it's praiseworthy, whatever. Try to make up your own mind, to see things for yourself and divest or detach from social proof, which unfortunately today really decides so much in our society. Celebrity is credibility today. And that's very dangerous, because just by virtue of being famous doesn't necessarily confer anything upon you. The same goes for wealth, by the way. Try to deprecate social proof. Make up your own mind. See substance in authenticity and originality and individual thinking separated from the opinions of others. So the second is to ignore social proof. The third is to weaponize key skills or core competencies. And I'm going to list a few, but really you should think about what are the core competencies that you have as a man. Is it your strength? Is it your intelligence? Is it your artistry? Is it your verbosity? Is it how articulate you are? Is it your ability to construct things? Whatever it is, what you want to do is weaponize that. You want to master it. You want to think of it as an arrow in your quiver, right? As something that you should be able to deploy at any given time. To supplement those, you should develop these key assets. One is to learn how to profile other people, to learn how their body language and the words that they use and the countenance on their face reflects who they really are as a person. Because so much of our success or failure, especially as men, depends upon seeing the worth of other people. That's very, very difficult to do. So what will help you in that process is to learn how to profile others and do so quickly. And you can do so by assessing their pedigree, where they come from, what language they speak, what values they prize, or in some cases, a total lack of values, a total lack of a belief structure in anything. That will tell you a great deal about the man that you're dealing with or the people that you're dealing with. Another is to practice speaking. Writing and speaking, in a sense, are anachronistic skills, right? They're not, in a vacuum, things that anybody believes have any value. But as you can see, just visually speaking, whether it's a YouTube channel or it's a LinkedIn profile, whatever, the quality of somebody's spoken and written language is a weapon. It's power. And that's something you must learn, because you can bring that to bear in a business sense, or in your personal life, in your dating life, in the sexual marketplace, whatever. That is a profound asset that will separate you from others, and it just demands practice. You also need to structure learning. You need to structure the way that your brain absorbs information. What most people do today is they just watch videos. That is not enough. You must compile notes. You must read as much as you possibly can. You must try to digest as much information, but do so in an organized fashion. Make lists of words that you don't know. Make reading lists of books you've never read. Create notes around subjects that you're interested in. And over time, that will accumulate into a robust library of information that you can bring to bear. Weaponize your key skills is number 3. Number 4, build a wall. I am about the same age as LeBron James. And LeBron James, by the time he was 16 years of age, was practically a household name. He was regarded as a child progeny, the second coming of Michael Jordan by the time he was a sophomore or junior in high school. That comes with tremendous pressure. It comes with huge numbers of people coming at you at any given time to exploit you, knowing that there's dollar signs over your head. LeBron James, whether you love him or hate him, weathered that storm. He survived it. And he thrives today as one of the best athletes in the world. How did he do that? He built a wall. What does that mean? His entire industry, or I guess I should say the complex that is LeBron James, the brand that defines who he is shaped by men who have a relationship with him that dates back 20 years. These are the people that he grew up with. The people that did not flock to him because they saw dollar signs. Build a wall consisting of people around you that you have a long-term relationship with that are going to be with you through thick and thin. People who will be there if you need them. And this is not an easy process, right? Because a lot of people who you think are really your friend are not. And you can only know that in the expanse of time, right? There's one other thing to note on this, and that is the people that are going to be your best, most reliable assets. You know, people that will help you construct a wall and filter out potential enemies and subversive influences and people that will do you harm or question or undermine your credibility. Those people are not always the people you like the most or the people that entertain you the most. Try to focus less on who you like the most or think is the coolest and more on people that are the most loyal, people that you can depend upon. Those are the people that will help you build a wall and reinforce a moat to prevent harmful influence in your life. So number 4 is to build a wall. Number 5 is concentration versus dispersion. You know, there's a good book. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. I'll link to it below. But one of the principles expressed in that book is that female energy disperses. It dissipates. In other words, it's almost like a wave, right? He makes a reference to female energy being like the weather. It comes and it goes. It ebbs and it flows. But male energy is concentrated. It's a concentrated burst. So for you as a man, you need to figure out your pedigree, you need to build the wall, you need to weaponize your skills, but do so in a concentrated manner. Bring your masculine energy to bear to build something that's very specific and precise, to focus on values that are specific and defined. Concentrate your energy. If you think of a man like James Bond as an example, James Bond is sharp, he's polished, he's focused. He's not easily distracted from the mission at hand. That's concentrated energy. That's masculine. It doesn't mean that you can't have hobbies and you can't, entertain yourself with various distractions. That's not at all what I mean. But the key for your life is focus on the core competencies. Concentrate your effort to maximize your masculine power. Concentrate, don't disperse your energy. Is number 5. Number 6 is the rule of 10 years. So there was a book written several years ago, I think by Malcolm Gladwell. I think it was called Outliers, in which he talked about the law of 10,000 hours. It takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. I think that's a very apt principle, but I would slightly amend it. Think of things in terms of 10 years. If you want to build a business, it's going to take 10 years. You want to build a skill or master a core competency, it's going to take 10 years. So this reinforces the last one, that if you're going to do something, it demands tremendous concentration over a long period of time. Think in terms of decades, not weeks, months, or hours, or even years. If you're going to embark upon something as a young man, you need to experiment. You need to try your hand at different things, no doubt, to figure out which direction to go. But once you've figured out what you really like and enjoy, that's when you need to recognize that it's going to take 10 years. It's going to take a decade. If you look at all of the prominent YouTubers, the big folks on social media, some of your more successful entrepreneurs, look at the lifespan of their companies or their business or their YouTube channel. More often than not, you're going to see that they've been on YouTube for 10 years. Think in terms of the rule of 10 years. It'll take you a decade to build something that will last. That's number 6, the rule of 10 years. Number 7, we as men have to build a worldview. Now, there's a lot of talk among folks in the manosphere and influencers, entrepreneurs, whatever, people that are living life on their own terms. There's a lot of emphasis on frame, creating your own frame. And what that means really is a worldview. It means that you're constructing an understanding of how the world functions, realistically functions based on the values and the discipline and the core competencies that you bring to bear. Men cannot afford to live life at a whim. We have to live a very structured life that approaches the world intellectually, physically, and otherwise based on a worldview, based on a value system that assesses how the world is, not how it should be. Without such a worldview, which, by the way, includes some metaphysical orientation in the world, some relationship with the supernatural or God or spiritualism. Without that, you really don't have frame. And this is observable among lots of men who have made a lot of money, they have successful businesses, but they don't really have a worldview. And so they're sort of empty. And a lot of those men have great difficulty attracting women, in part because they don't have a real understanding of the world. There's no value system that communicates that frame. And women in particular are very adept at sensing that. If you're just in it to make lots of money or build a business to make lots of money, that's not a worldview. That's not enough. For you as a man to really succeed in life, money is less important than building that worldview, that framework, that discipline, because that is the foundation for your kingdom. That's the foundation for your mission, and ultimately that's what you pass along to posterity. So worldview, forming a worldview, is number 7. Number 8, and lastly, hopefully encompasses all of the previous 7 points that I've made so far. And that is, men, at the end of the day, are ideas. Men are the expressions of our worldviews, the weaponization of our skills, the wall, the kingdom, the structure that we built. That is ultimately what a woman is attracted to, and that is what she then absorbs and reproduces in your offspring. Men are ideas, and women are the receptacles for those ideas, and ultimately they are replicating that idea in a new human being, which is your offspring, okay? Which are your offspring. Men are ideas. In order to become that idea, you have to have these principles mastered to some degree. You have to have a worldview. You have to know your pedigree. You have to ignore the trappings of wealth or the social proof that other people have, and assess people as they are, not as the world necessarily tells you they are. You have to build that wall. You have to concentrate your energy. You have to invest a decade in doing these things. And needless to say, you need to consolidate all of these things into a worldview. So number 8, and the final principle here, is that men are ideas. So that's food for thought. Hopefully that gives you some ammunition to fight, to engage this world that's just as precarious as it's always been, and succeed and win on the other side of it. Stay tuned for more, and we'll talk soon.